506 on WMAL 105.9. My name is Dan Mandis, in for Vince Coglianese. I've been really looking forward for the last couple of hours to this particular interview because I'm trying to figure this out. I'm not a technical guy. So thank the Lord, Terry Schilling is with us, president of the American Principles Project. And Terry, the story reads that over the last 10 days, the Harris campaign has edited the headlines and descriptions of almost a dozen media outlets' articles found through Google search advertisements to appear as search ads from the Harris campaign, according to Axios. Now, we're talking about CNN, USA Today, government-funded, taxpayer-funded NPR, and other outlets as well. So, Terry, what exactly is going on here?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Dan. What's going on here is the truth is being told. I know the media is upset, and it's because they're being exposed and essentially embarrassed for being what I would call part of the Kamala Harris for president communications team, right? All of these news articles that they are accusing Kamala Harris and her campaign of editing all say the things that Kamala Harris wants voters to know. And the reality is that the legacy media for so long now, I mean, the media has always been biased and slanted to the left, but ever since Trump came on the scene, actually probably even since Obama came on the scene, the media has just gone full in, all in the tank for the Democrats. And they accuse Republicans of the worst things ever. But essentially, the legacy media is upset because they're being exposed as a campaign arm of the Kamala Harris for president campaign.
Yeah, see, what it seems to me is, and I agree with you on so many different levels, we didn't need this story to know that the media was in tank with Kamala Harris. But from a technical standpoint, what it looks like is that Harris was editing the headlines of these various stories to appear in the Google searches as, I guess, sponsored ads. And so what this essentially means is that they were using the media headlines and sort of editing the headlines and then pushing them out to the American people so that when they sign on, they look at the news and so on and so forth, they see all of these really positive, glowing headlines from about Kamala Harris, and they're in The Guardian, NPR, and these media outlets in CNN and USA Today and so forth, and some of these media outlets are saying that they didn't actually know that this was happening. I find that hard to believe.
Well, I'll tell you what they do know is happening. They do know that these stories are being put out there. These stories that really aren't news, they aren't really portraying any new information or any facts and real information that voters are hungry for. They are pushing propaganda on the American people. I mean, there was one of the ads that stood out to me, Dan. It said that inflation is down. I don't know, what that's talking about, but as far as I know, prices have not gone down since Kamala Harris and Joe Biden took the White House. They've gone up dramatically. I've got a large family, as you know, and it actually hurts every time I go pump my gas, every time I go to the grocery store. The media has been covering for the Democrats, for this administration, in the most absurd ways. They are gaslighting us. It's no longer, where they're just, slanted. They're actually denying bad things about the administration. And then once it comes out that it is true that the administration's had a disastrous first term, they're saying it's actually good that it was a disastrous first term. The media is fully in the tank for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
It's interesting. So that's a great way to put it in perspective. They take these articles, they manipulate the headline, they push it out, and then most people, of course, as you know, don't read beyond the headline. So they see the headline, they digest the headline, and then they're like, oh, great, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they're doing a great job with the economy. I saw the headline in The Guardian. I saw the same headline from the AP and other outlets as well. And so that is literally pushing propaganda and fake news. And you're right. It's hard for me to believe that the media and these various outlets didn't know about it. They don't seem particularly all that appalled or concerned. They, I assume, have plausible deniability in all of this. But, there was not, from what I understand, there wasn't a law broken here, unethical perhaps, but there wasn't a law broken from what I can tell.
No, there's no law. And I would even argue that I don't think that what Kamala Harris did was unethical. What I think is unethical is what the media has been doing nonstop around the clock for the past 15 years, which is lie to the American people, slander good, solid. Dan, I got a chance to spend, 5 minutes with President Trump. We were filming a documentary a few weeks ago. I got the chance to spend 5 minutes with the guy, and I left that meeting so upset at what the media has done, not just to him and his reputation and who he is as a person, but depriving the American people of a president that they should revere and love and know better, right? They have lied about. He walked in the room. He was in charge. He was totally competent. He was, totally on his game. He knew as much about these family issues as I knew, right? And he's so good. He's so smart. He's so likable. He's a charming guy. He's nice. And the media has slandered him as a horrible person. They put out every lie that they could about him just to see what sticks. And that's what's unethical. It's what the media has been doing over the last 15 years. That's where the ethics come in, and that's where people should be getting punished.
Well, and in my opinion, the very same media outlets that we're talking about right now, Terry, also took part in really clearly manipulating the 2020 election by spiking the laptop from hell's story. And I do see the same thing happening right now. One of the things that I've noticed, and Peter Doocy, I want to play a quick audio bite here. Peter Doocy reported yesterday, or it was last night, or maybe this morning, but he's talking about how Kamala Harris actually ditched her press pool to avoid speaking to the media.
And something new tonight. As the presumptive nominee, Vice President Harris is supposed to travel everywhere she goes with a protective press pool. We just learned that she left her press pool behind to attend an event at Howard University yesterday. We've reached out to her office. We are waiting back. We are awaiting an answer back from them as to why she didn't want a small group of reporters documenting her trip across town.
Well, it's obvious because she has something to hide and she doesn't want to speak to the media. She's been, pretty consistent all the way through, Terry. And so I guess now it's up to the media to call out Kamala Harris because clearly she doesn't care what the American people think. And one of the things I find interesting, Terry, and I'll ask you to comment on this, is that we are now beginning to see slowly but surely some members of the media start to hold the Harris campaign kind of sort of accountable. We saw an interview with Jim Acosta this morning with one of the spokespeople for the Harris campaign basically saying, what is it going to hurt to do an interview? Yesterday, a great 2.5 minute interview speech or interview segment with John Berman, and he was speaking to, again, someone from the Harris campaign, also asking the question, why won't you do an interview? So do you think that we may at some point see the media a full-on blitz, just like they did with Joe Biden, where it was like, okay, dude, it's time to get out? Do you see at some point a full-on media blitz going after the Harris campaign for not granting an interview and not asking questions?
Dan, I don't. I have lost all faith and trust in the legacy media. Right? These people are not just evil and corrupt. A lot of them are just really dumb, right? And they actually believe the most preposterous things. Like, I think that many in the media actually believe that Trump, if he were to get into the White House again, that he would become Hitler, right? Like, I really think that that's what they're up against. And so, no, I don't think that they're going to really cause much of a stir around this. And, the other day I asked the question, I said, in 2020, Joe Biden hid from the media and didn't do interviews to hide his dementia and his cognitive decline. In 2024, Kamala Harris is refusing to do interviews with the media to hide what? And it was amazing, the responses I was getting from people. People, look, first of all, I think she's vapid, right? I think that
Yeah.
she doesn't know anything. I think her positions on issues are very unpopular. If you see her in these crowds, I don't really think she's that well formed in a lot of ways. I think that she caters and panders to the furthest left-wing outlets and organizations and special interest groups out there. And so I think that it's because her positions are unpopular. She can't articulate them. She doesn't sound like a third grade teacher when she's talking. She sounds like a third grader, right? Who is
Yeah.
trying to fluff a research report that they're doing. This is someone that's vapid, not very smart, and has very unpopular opinions. And so I don't see her doing interviews, and I don't see the media actually causing much of a furor over this stuff.
And I will tell you that I have absolutely no respect for the outlets that we're talking about. You and I definitely on the same page. There's a couple of other things that are out there that I want to just get your opinion on. Number one, this is breaking today, I believe, where there's a conflict of interest concerns emerge now as new records reveal that Dana Walden, the host of the ABC News debate between Trump and Kamala Harris on September 10th, has contributed to the campaigns of Kamala Harris when she was running for Attorney General, her Senate campaign, and also her 2020 White House run. Walden has also hosted fundraisers for Kamala Harris at her home. So you've got the debate host that is clearly a supporter of Kamala Harris and has actually donated to her campaigns. That sounds like an incredible conflict of interest.
No, that's exactly right, Dan. And I'll tell you, I think it was in the 2020 election, they did an analysis. No, it was 2016. 2016, they did an analysis on the donations from journalists to the presidential candidates. And 94% of contributions from journalists went to Hillary Clinton. This isn't new, right? But this is what we need to start doing is changing how we engage with these people. We need to make it, Donald Trump should make it clear. Let Walden do the debate. Let him. But every chance he gets a chance to speak, and every time these moderators try to interfere and interject in this debate, make sure that you remind the viewers that that person donated over $11,000 to Kamala Harris, or whatever the total is at this point. Make sure the voters know. They're smart enough. They'll realize it. They'll see the bias, and they'll see through it, I think.
Here's one more. We all suspected this. Now, over the past couple of days, Google admits to changing the search results for Trump assassination searches and, of course, a whole lot more. This was something that Google was accused of. They said that it was a problem with an outdated algorithm. I don't believe that. But, this is just, it's interesting, Terry, that we have you on today because there's all of these different stories about whether they are media outlets, now Google, where it's just the bias is out there and they're being found out. Got an opinion on this Google search where they are now admitting that they changed the search results for the Trump assassination searches?
Yeah, look, I think that as bad as the legacy media is, what Google has done to our elections is far worse. And it's because Google is far more pervasive in our lives than the legacy mainstream media. A lot of people have been tuning out of TV. There's still too many that watch it and take it seriously, but everyone uses Google. Google has 96% of all web searches, right?
Yep.
And so by them doing this stuff, that's actually criminal, and there needs to be an antitrust situation with them where we rein them in and actually, get them to start being fair. You can't have a monopoly and throw our elections as egregiously as Google's been doing it.
Well, and I mean, it, again, not to belabor the point, but look what happened in 2020. Look what happened when people were countering the opinions of Dr. Anthony Fauci. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And then you'll have the media hand-wring over Iran and Russia trying to interfere in our elections when they are doing the same damn thing.
Yeah, and I think that they actually did like the full analysis of the Russian ads that they were running in our elections in 2016 was like a total of $74,000. I think I wrote an op-ed or a tweet or something during that time when they came out with that saying, holy cow, we need to actually go meet with these Russians because if they were able to swing the entire American election system where over $10 billion is spent with the spending over $75,000, Well, they're probably onto something, and I should learn how they do their messaging. It's preposterous. It is preposterous that Russia had any impact whatsoever on our elections. And, it's all just part of their plan. It's part of their propaganda. They don't want Donald Trump in the White House, and they'll do anything and say anything to keep him out.
And that's why it is critical that people remain engaged on X and really listen to, for example, the conversation between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, because that is the unfiltered truth. Terry Schiller, president of American Principles Project. How can people find you on Twitter?
It's just, Schilling 1776 across all the platforms. So Getter, True Social, X, Instagram, Schilling 1776, SCHILLING 1776.
105.9 WMAL. My name is Dan Mandis, in for Vince Coglianese. Coming up next, I have a hard time believing the headline that Donald Trump is frustrated and upset and has pick regret when it comes to J.D. Vance and his running mate. But that is in the news. J.D. Vance was rocking earlier today. I've got some fantastic audio for you. It is coming up next on WMAL. 534 on 105.9 WMAL. Dan Mandis here, in for Vince Coglianese. I will get to that J.D. Vance audio where he is basically scolding a member of the media for how they're presenting the inflation numbers today. I've got to play this, though. I just posted this to my X account at Dan Mandis Show. Charlie Kirk.
Today, we're trying to find out from the...
Sorry about that. Charlie Kirk has his organization has done a sort of man-on-the-street interview, if you will, outside of the rally in Phoenix, where Kamala Harris was making an appearance. And they were asked to basically list her accomplishments. And this is what they said. Listen to this.
Today, we're trying to find out from the attendees what Kamala Harris's greatest accomplishment has been as VP.
Honestly, I'm not too into politics. I'm just here for the vibe.
Becoming the first female vice president.
So becoming the VP is the best accomplishment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Being a good person.
Being a good person?
Yeah. She's I don't know. She seems really good for women.
So being a good person and being really good for women, I don't know if Willie Brown's wife would agree. Moving on.
Harris is there with the energy. She has a lot of enthusiasm, so it's important to get behind her.
Wow.
What is Kamala's top accomplishment, you think?
I can't say anything right now. Give me a second.
Her top contributions to policy or policy as VP.
Now this guy is, and again, you can see all this, but this dude is wearing a shirt that says Harris 2024, POTUS is a black job.
I wasn't in on the policy making decisions with President Biden, so I don't know.
Her favorite policies. Oh my gosh. See, I wish they would tell us more about that, because I honestly don't know.
Oh my Lord. I wish they would tell us about that, because I don't. Open the internet. Google Kamala Harris and illegal immigration. Google Kamala Harris border czar lady and see what comes up. I understand there's low information voters, but oh Lord.
I know she's done some good work with immigration, even though they say opposite.
They do, because immigration is terrible.
What do they say?
Well, what is it? She's the border czar.
She's
Yeah.
the fake border
It's
czar.
her fault that all these immigrants are coming over, to cross the border right now, which I don't think they are.
People have been saying that Kamala's a border czar, or whatever that means. Is there an issue at the border? Has Kamala done anything about it? Or was there not anything to do about it, and so they're just kind of making things up?
So I don't think there's an issue with the border at all. I feel like, yes, illegal immigrants are coming to America, but that's what America's all about, is to come to America and live that American dream. because America isn't just for the whites. It's not just for the blacks. It's not just for the Mexicans. No, it's for everyone around the world. We're supposed.
So it's like ISIS. Is America for ISIS coming across our southern border, or people who have smuggled, ISIS terrorists into our country? Is that what America is for, or who America is for? You dolt. I mean, think about this. This is the kind of person that is voting for Kamala Harris. And I do understand, because I know that there's hate listeners out there. I do understand that the folks at Charlie Kirk, and people do this, they edit these in a certain way to make Kamala Harris supporters look dumb. But for this one woman to say, oh, I don't think illegal immigration is a problem, and this guy to say, well, America's, for everybody. And I would agree if we're talking about legal immigration, but not illegal immigration.
Supposed to be a country of letting people come in and do what they'd like. I mean, I understand that with
let people come in and do what they like. Okay, Mr. Kamala Harris supporter, can we bring in some illegal aliens and can they come stay at your house? I mean, if we want to allow people to do what they like, can they come stay at your house? Can they camp out on your lawn? Can they overtake your neighborhood like is happening in Denver, Colorado, where a bunch of illegal aliens, I think from Venezuela, they're taking over literally an entire apartment complex. And now it's full of rats and vermin, garbage. And now they're trying to figure out what to do because this entire apartment complex has literally been destroyed. And it's still better than what they left. But you see, this is the kind of attitude that some of these folks voting for Kamala Harris have. They just don't understand.
Say the border crisis is causing all these drug issues and it's causing crime, but in my opinion, there's crime everywhere. You can go to New York, you can go to Canada, you can go anywhere across the world, and there's going to be crime regardless.
Yeah, it's a total. They're blowing it way out of proportion, huh?
Oh, for sure.
Would you say there's a problem at the border at all?
So there is a problem at the border. I really would wish for her to go visit the border while she's here. I don't know what's on her schedule and whatnot, but I mean, there's work to do, and I can't dismiss that. There's problems to fix, but my personal wish would be for her to visit the border with the governor so they could see what's going on.
There you go. So the last guy, at least he admitted that there were problems on the southern border. At least that. But I think by and large, I mean, most Donald Trump supporters know what the man accomplished in the 4 years that he was president. Most supporters of Donald Trump can rattle off at least a couple of different policy initiatives. But these folks, oh my Lord. I mean, I don't know, and I tweeted this out. You can see the whole video at Dan Manda Show. It's right there at the top. And one of the things that I said was, I don't know if I should laugh or cry at this. And the worry is that these are the kinds of people that may turn this election. Because I think that these folks are probably, and I'm going to air quote here, the independent voters. Because, there's two kinds of independents. You folks know this. To me, there's two kinds of independent voters. There's the independent voters that are actually really smart. They're actually really smart, and they know the issues, and they are really issues-oriented. And they're not going to align with any party because, quite frankly, both parties have angered them. That's one kind of independent voter. And then there's these people who they're independent because, quite frankly, they don't know the difference between conservative values and progressive values. That's these people. And these are the people I fear that are going to be turning the election. J.D. Vance, I saw this, it was just a headline. I didn't even read it because I thought it was BS. But the headline was that Donald Trump is furious And he's going to start firing people because the former president feels like J.D. Vance is not working out. Now, I'm not exactly sure why President Trump feels that way, because I believe personally, even though you had the whole thing with the, cat ladies, whatever that was, but I mean, that clearly has gone away with the Tim Walz disaster on the other side. Tim Walz, the running mate of Kamala Harris, in my opinion, has been an epic disaster for Kamala Harris. And unfortunately, I don't have enough time to go through all of it. It's been a very busy show. But for, all of these allegations or these accusations that J.D. Vance is, quote unquote, weird, number one, I don't see it. And number two, I think that J.D. Vance has been doing a banger job at selling Donald Trump's initiatives, at selling Donald Trump's first 4 years, and at telling the American people what exactly it is that Donald Trump wants to do when he takes the White House in 2025, provided he wins. Now, earlier today, there was a little press conference going on at J.D. Vance, and for people who support Kamala Harris, she doesn't really seem to know what a press conference is. It's when people who are running for president will actually answer questions from the media. J.D. Vance absolutely torches a New York Times reporter when they were talking about inflation. Listen closely.
Sir. With the New York Times, I wanted to ask you about the latest economic news from this morning, with inflation now being under 3%, the lowest rate since mid-2021. What is your sort of reaction to that news?
Now, you can hear the people reacting because they know that is a bogus question.
Well, I think the crowd reaction says it all. Look, when they say that inflation is down, they mean from a baseline where groceries are already 30% more expensive than they were when Donald Trump was president.
Yep.
And they're not saying it's coming down. They're just saying it's not going up as fast as it was 3 years ago. That is not a reputation or a record to brag on. That's a record to be ashamed of. Why did it take them so long to get inflation to where it is, and why are prices so high? It's because Kamala Harris failed to do her job. So if they want to go around, and this is, it's funny. Kamala Harris, on the one hand, will say, on day one, we're going to tackle the affordability crisis. And like I said earlier, Kamala Harris has been the vice president for 3.5 years. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, she's in effect been the acting president, because we all know Joe Biden isn't home. So she's been the one controlling government policy for 3.5 years. She says she wants to tackle the affordability crisis on day one. And then on the other hand, she'll say, oh, we've already got inflation under control. Well, which is it, Kamala? Which is it? The simple truth is America's credit card debt is getting higher.
Yep.
Americans are finding the basic necessities of middle-class life less affordable. Americans are becoming, especially young people, are becoming paupers in their own country. If we don't do better, our young generation, they're not going to own anything. They're not going to have anything. They're going to be renters in the country that their parents and grandparents built. Inflation is a disaster. Kamala Harris does not have a leg to stand on.
There you go, J.D. Vance. I don't know why Donald Trump would believe that J.D. Vance is a disaster. And I'm going to be honest, I don't necessarily believe the story. I don't believe the story at all. So that is J.D. Vance, and I, again, think that he is doing a great job. Now, earlier, I was playing you that audio of just a couple of minutes ago, all of these folks at a Kamala Harris rally in Phoenix, and they were asking the question, Charlie Kirk, his team was asking questions about what is Kamala Harris's biggest achievement. And nobody could answer a thing. And what is so incredible is that as much of a disaster as the southern border has been, these people are in Phoenix. And they got nothing. They don't know the issues. And listen, there are times, friends, when I wish that, as I said yesterday, there are times I wish that I could sit around and watch SpongeBob all day too. But you know what? The news is important. These people clearly don't care. I would be curious to know, if you read them just some of the headlines, what they would say about those headlines. For example, this headline that came out just a little bit ago. There's now been a 4,000% increase in Chinese nationals crossing our southern border.
And over the weekend, Fox cameras witnessed hundreds of Chinese nationals crossing illegally here in Hakumba. Again, most of them single adults, very few if any with little children with them. John and Sandra, this is not normal. These numbers are shooting through the roof when it comes to the Chinese. Just to put it in perspective, look at this stunning graphic. CBP sources telling Fox News in the last 4.5 months since October 1st, there have been more than 20,000 Chinese nationals encountered at our southern border. That is up more than 4,000% over all of fiscal year 2021, when there were just 450 Chinese nationals encountering. Keep in mind, we still have almost 8 months left in fiscal year 2024 to go.
Yeah, that's going to be bad. I mean, all these Chinese nationals obviously coming across our southern border. You heard one of those women say, well, I don't think what's happening on our southern border is a problem. And it's just, again, it is the frustration of the low information voter. Now, I'm just telling you, as a guy who is a high information voter, because, I do this stuff for a living, I actually find it quite offensive that my vote counts as much as theirs. I mean, think about it. Now, I do understand, obviously, that's the way the Constitution works. That's how our country works. But don't people owe it to our country to, at the very least, have a basic understanding of what in the world is going on in our country? And again, I understand how our country works, but I can tell you that it is incredibly frustrating when you're a guy who reads the news every day. And man, it is not hard. And that's why this whole story that we covered earlier today, where you found that Kamala Harris was delivering fake news to voters by manipulating headlines with these various websites, The Independent, The Associated Press, PBS, CBS News, Time, a couple of other outlets as well, like CNN and so forth, NPR as well, where they manipulated the headlines. They didn't break any laws, but, you got a lot of people that are scratching their heads as Kamala Harris was literally manipulating headlines and forwarding them to, pushing those headlines to the American people, knowing full well that when you change the headlines and you change really the meaning of the story in the headline, that is literally propaganda. And these various media outlets, and I did a great interview on this earlier. You can catch it on the WMAL podcast page. I'm Dan, filling in for Vince Coglianese, where the guest explained everything that Kamala Harris has been trying to do, which is lie to the American people. So she won't give interviews to actual journalists, but what she will do is lie and manipulate headlines, throwing fake news, pushing fake news out to the American people. And the media outlets are like scratching their heads and say, oh, we're going to go ahead and we're going to look into that. I'm sure that they will. 5:57 right here on 105.9 FM, WMAL. Dan Mandis here in for Vince Coglianese. End of another program. Mark Levin is coming up next. You can always follow me on the socials at Dan Mandis Show. Especially follow me on X. A lot of great content I pushed out as this show unfolded. Appreciate you listening. Again, Mark Levin is up next. I'll see you tomorrow.